travel agency.
The delegate of Tourism and Leisure, Meme Mali Sawono, reveals the raison d'etre of the training workshop. Hygiene was another major concern from the organizers. The event, which had over 20 participants from hotels, bars and restaurants, was again, as Kenu Samuel reveals.
At the end of the seminar, it's such a resourceful seminar, and learn a lot from here. We learn about basic hygiene.
Unity and stability within the French foreign policy as far as Africa is concerned. And several times, if you look around the region, you realize that the situation in Togo is not different from that which is taking place in Gabon. It might have not been equally be different from what you have just witnessed in the center, in Chad and many other areas. And I don't think Cameroon is going to be an exception.
But others say Frank Bia's candidature for 2025 presidential election, it's something that needs not to be encouraged.
It's better the devil you know than the angel you don't know. He might come to drag the country to another disastrous abyss, or perhaps stay longer than his father, and Cameroon will lose its identity.
With Cameroon being a country of less than 30 million inhabitants, according to the country's national statistics report, some Cameroonians and other political observers are challenging the far too many political parties in a small country like Cameroon. With the coming into place of parties such as the Pan-African Convergence, Cameroon Party for Peace, Reconciliation, Stability and Reconstruction, Le Mouvement pour l'Émergence du Cameroun, Front Républicain Camerounais, just to name but these, it is a matter to wait and see.
Talking something else now, the world is celebrating World Prematurity Day today on the theme Small Action, Big Impact, Immediate Skin-to-Skin Care for Every Baby Everywhere. The day that was instituted decades ago by the World Health Organization seeks to bring on the plights that premature baby face globally. As our health reporter Claudine Tamfu has more.
For the past decade, the World Health Organization (WHO) has instituted every 17 November as World Prematurity Day, a day that seeks to give exposure on the plight of premature babies around the globe, as neonatologists shed more light on their characteristics.
The majority of the babies will have issues relating to breathing and feeding. The smaller the baby is, or the more premature the baby is, every system in that baby's body is immature, from the brain to the kidneys to the liver to the intestinal tract, and they can have unique and life-threatening problems with each one of those systems.
The little fragile babies differ in their behaviors depending on their prematurity and the context within which they find themselves.
Infection is a big problem in the very tiny premature infants, but the majority, it's breathing, have their lungs fully developed, or is there some extra fluid? Once that's improved, then we work on feeding. There's a reflex that develops in babies to allow them to coordinate sucking, swallowing, and breathing. Typically, that reflex begins to develop when the baby's around 35 weeks inside mom. So when they're born at term, they're ready to go. So depending on the level of prematurity and where they are in the development of that reflex really determines how well they're going to feed.
The 2023 edition of the World Prematurity Day is Small Actions, Big Impact, Immediate Skin-to-Skin Care for Every Baby and Everyone. As the different governments continue to implement special consideration when it comes to prematurity, everyone has been therefore called upon to put hands on deck so as to ensure these premature babies survive during their incubation period at the hospitals.
You are watching High Prime and we are coming to you live from our main studio here in High Television. On to our foreign news package now. Liberian opposition candidate Joseph Boakai is leading in the runoff polls of the Liberian presidential elections, way ahead of the incumbent president George Weah. Aisha Mbeng has more on that part.
Two candidates are currently neck and neck with provisional results showing opposition candidate Joseph Boakai with a 50.58% lead. Incumbent President George Weah is currently trailing with 49.42% of the votes. According to observers from the European Union and the Economic Community of West African States, the presidential election has been largely peaceful.
Counting was mostly conducted efficiently, accurately, and in a transparent manner, but important reconciliation steps were often omitted in an effort to speed up the process. Currently, our observers are following the process at the county tally centers across the country. Up until now, this process is assessed mainly positively as transparent, efficient, and orderly managed. We will continue to observe the tally until it's finalized. We also follow the handling of complaints and appeals. The mission will remain in the country until 10th of December to follow all the remaining steps of this electoral process.
According to the chairwoman of the Electoral Commission, Davidetta Brown, 5,107 polling stations out of 5,890 have been counted so far. This represents 86.61% of the polling stations. ECOWAS also congratulated all stakeholders on the largely peaceful election, although it noted isolated incidents in the provinces of Lofa, Bon, Niba, which resulted in injuries and hospitalization. President George Weah is seeking a second term in office, but his former vice president is tipped to win the runoff presidential election.
Still with news out of the shores of Cameroon, the UK Supreme Court has struck down the country's decision of sending asylum seekers to Rwanda. The Rwandan government says she accepts the UK's Supreme Court's decision, as Rita Mafanyi Mujoko reports.
The landmark ruling from the United Kingdom Supreme Court has dealt a blow to the UK government's strategy of sending asylum seekers to Rwanda. The decision renders it illegal, but this has not gone down well with Rwanda. Rwanda's deputy government spokesperson says his country will repeat the court's ruling but asserted its commitment on establishing a binding strategy with the UK.
The position of Rwanda in this matter is to respect all rulings made by all courts in general, especially if when it's a ruling made by the Supreme Court. However, this does not mean we can't disagree with the court. If the judges in the UK saw that sending the asylum seekers to Rwanda is unlawful, they could have visited Rwanda first. If they think the country is unsafe, how about traveling to Rwanda to do your own investigation? The UK should have extended an invitation to Rwanda to be part of the court's hearing. None of that was done before yesterday's ruling was made by the Supreme Court.
The decision from the UK Supreme Court is a political blow to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who made stopping the boat one of his 5 priorities when he took over the leadership last year.
I don't think the ruling from another country can affect an image of another country for obvious reasons and so many reasons. First of all, the courts in UK are not knowledgeable about the situation in Rwanda. They do not live in Rwanda. They are not accustomed by what is happening in Rwanda. The court ruling is not the last step. It's just a step in a very long way. And I think both parties will continue to work together. And as I know, as a legal practitioner in this country, I know so many trainings are even going on. So many people are being trained and so many institutions are being prepared to receive these people once they are sent here.
Britain struck a 5-year, £150 million deal with Rwanda in April 2022 to send an unspecified number of asylum seekers to Kigali for processing. According to Rishi Sunak, the UK would seek to sign a new treaty with Rwanda.
Moving over to sports, 6 stadiums have been programmed to host matches for the 2023 edition of the African Cup of Nations scheduled for Cote d'Ivoire. On this, High Prime sportswoman Sonita Ngonyo reviews the state-of-the-art sports facility in the West African nation of Ivory Coast. Sonita?
I'm going to know the number and the various stadiums that have been chosen to host the 2023 African Cup of Nations. I'm going to be giving to you an overview on the various stadiums that have been chosen to host of the African Cup of Nations coming January 2024. I am Sonita Ngonyo. Stay tuned.
As January 2024 approaches, the fever of the 34th African Cup of Nations edition is getting high, with infrastructures being one of the main characteristics of hosting the African Cup of Nations. Here are the 6 AFCON 2023 stadiums that will host the 24 countries for the second time in Ivory Coast come January to February 2024. On the list is Stade Alassane Ouattara in Abidjan, with a capacity of 60,000 seats. It is Ivory Coast's new national stadium. It is the largest stadium in the country and the most modern in Africa as well. Second on the list is Laurent Paco Stadium, capacity 20,000. It's a brand new stadium built between 2018 to 2023 in preparations of the 34th African Cup of Nations edition in Ivory Coast. The stadium was named after Laurent Paco, a late Ivorian actor who died in 2016. Charles Kanouny Barry Stadium, capacity 20,000. It's equally another new site built between 2018 to 2023 in preparations of the 2023 AFCON. It is another new modern stadium in the nation's capital. It was initially called Stade de Yamoussoukro. The Boni Stadium was named after Charles Kanouny on April 2023 after the country's former Prime Minister Charles Kanouny Bruni, who died in 2001. Stade Felix Houphouët-Boigny, capacity 33,000, is located in Abidjan. The stadium was named Stade Cheikh Idriss in order to recognize the French boatman in the 1961 French game, and now called Felix Houphouët-Boigny, the country's first president. It is also called Le Félixie. It equally hosted the finals of the AFCON in 1984, and in 2009 and 2013, there was a stampede which caused the death of 19 and 61 people respectively. Prior to the 2023 African Cup of Nations, the venue has been upgraded with a roof covering the entire auditorium. Stade de la Paix is another stadium that will be used in this year's edition in Ivory Coast. Capacity 40,000, built in the Bukayet city with about 800,000 people, and this particular city is known to be a city where many Ivorian footballers like Yaya Touré and Ibrahim Touré were born, amongst others. The stadium was built in the second largest city of Ivory Coast and hosted the 1984 AFCON. The arena equally acted as a peace place where in July 30 and 31st, 2007, the so-called ceasefire ceremony took place in the stadium, symbolizing an end to the Ivorian crisis and equally representing the current name, the Stade of Peace. Following the 33rd AFCON edition held in Cameroon, the avenue was expanded from 23 to 40,000 capacity. And at the last spot, it's the Amadou Ngong Coulibaly 20,000 newly built capacity stadium to host the upcoming tournament. Construction works started in May 2018 and ended in 2019 with Amadou Ngong Coulibaly as Prime Minister of the GFCS. He died in office as he was the venue's patron before his demise. The naming of the stadium was already announced in July 2023.
And with that stadium retrospect done for us by Sonita Ngonyo in the African Cup of Nations for Cote d'Ivoire, this is where we conclude this package of the newscast of Friday the 17th of November 2023. Thanks so much for watching, and we are wishing the Lions well as they are currently facing Mauritius at the Chapuma Stadium in Douala. Good night from the scene.